Okay, we're up to episode 4, which is the last new episode so far until Sunday. In the Silver Mustang Casino, Cooper is still hitting jackpots. Now the pit boss and his supervisor watch. The nasty old woman from before now calls Cooper Mr. Jackpots because of all the times he's helped her hit jackpots. Dougie's friends see him and realize he's off, that this maybe something has happened to Dougie. When Dougie talks about home, they tell him Dougie's house has a red door and can be reached by a very short cab ride. The supervisor brings Cooper into his office and pays him his winnings. They give Cooper a limo ride to his home. The supervisor tells him to come back and try his luck again. Cooper notices the camera over the man's desk, and the man says, yes, they're being watched. They're watching. Does the the Howard Hughes portrait on the supervisor's wall mean anything, or is it just a picture of a rich dude? The supervisor doesn't seem to know Dougie or recognize him as Dougie, so I'm guessing that Dougie does not work in the casino, but maybe he frequents it, because that's where Jade dropped him off specifically at the end of, or in previous episode. Are the people watching, who are presumably the owners and the people running the Silver Mustang, are they the people to whom Dougie owes money? Is Mr. Todd one of them? Anyway, the limo takes Cooper to Dougie's house. Waiting outside, they hear it and see an owl. Janie E., who is Dougie's wife, emerges from their house and slaps Cooper, wondering where he's been. The limo driver explains everything that's happened up to this point. Dougie was missing for 3 days, apparently, and missed his son's birthday, or Sonny Jim is what they call him. Presumably he's Dougie's son. Janie E. takes him inside and wonders where he was, and then she sees the money that Cooper won, which the supervisor gave him a bag of money as his winnings. And her attitude changes after that. She correctly guesses that he got it at the Silver Mustang. I think the limo driver had mentioned that he had been at the Silver Mustang. She explains that it could pay off some unspecified debts. And who do they owe money to? And how did she know he wanted the Silver Mustang? Presumably it was the limo driver telling her. Again, does he work there? I'm guessing not. No one recognizes him. Is he a real estate agent? That seemed to be what he was dressed as. His clothing seemed to indicate that previously. That might explain why he was using the vacant house for the sexual liaison with the prostitute earlier. So Cole talks to Bill, who's an assistant at the FBI chief of staff. There's a whole exchange between them about Cole asking how Martha is, and if Bill fixed the thing with Paul. Bill says Martha's fine. Paul is now at the North Pole. I don't know what any of that means. I'm guessing it's just small talk between the two of them and doesn't really have any bearing on anything. While Cole waits, he notices a bundle of flowers on the chair beside him. So the door opens and in comes Denise Bryson, formerly Dennis Bryson and formerly a DEA agent, apparently. She comes into the room. Apparently it's her office. Apparently she's now the FBI chief of staff. Cole explains that they found Cooper. Bryson already knows and insinuates that Cole might be sexually interested or involved with Agent Tamara or Tammy Preston, who's going to South Dakota with him and Albert. Cole refutes the insinuation, of course. Says he's an old school FBI agent. Bryson was always an FBI agent, apparently, and was undercover for Cole at the DEA. When Bryson was confused and wild, Cole says he had lots of dirt on her, but never used it because she's such a great agent. When Dennis became Denise, Cole explained to Bryson's colleagues to fix their hearts or die, which I thought was a great scene and some great lines. Bryson thanks him for that. Bryson trusts Cole and knows that he's on the trail of something big. Why does the end scene with Bryson fanning herself seem to be reversed? Was that mean anything, or is it just a case of them wanting to reverse it? I don't know. Who are Bill, Martha, and Paul? Your guess is as good as mine. How did Bryson become the FBI chief of staff? What was Bryson investigating for Cole at the DEA? Did Bryson do a full-on transition to being a woman? He makes some comments about hormones, which of course Cole hilariously doesn't want to hear about. And that suggests that perhaps he did transition completely to being a woman. Lucy talks to Sheriff Frank Truman on the phone about the thermostat. Excuse me. She's shocked when Truman enters the station and falls back in her chair very dramatically and very hilariously. She apparently doesn't understand how cell phones work. This is a similar scene to a cutscene from Fire Walk with Me, where Lucy has the same reaction to Harry Truman appearing while she talks to him, supposedly on the intercom. And when she leaves her office, she runs into Andy. So that was either, I guess, a reuse of his idea for that, which didn't make it into the finished theatrical movie, or a callback to that, whichever you like. A deputy, Maggie, gives Truman the rundown on the day's problems. One concerns a boy named Denny Craig, who OD'd in school. In the hallway, Truman meets Bobby Briggs, who is now apparently a sheriff's deputy. Someone asked me how in the world Bobby became a deputy when he had all those crimes in his past. Apparently he committed murder as well as running and doing drugs. Bobby tells Truman that he saw nothing of the trail cams he had set up trying to catch drug runners. Truman says it must be some Chinese designer drugs. That seems to be some sort of connection to Joan Chen's character, Josie Packard, perhaps. I had a strange suspicion that maybe Bobby was the one running the drugs, maybe keeping the drug runners off the cameras, warning them off and telling them to take alternate trails into the Twin Peaks area. He just seemed like he was a little too matter-of-fact about not seeing any of the drug runners on his cameras. And due to his past history of drug running and taking drugs, I thought it seems like a good chance that maybe he's involved. Why did Bobby, who always seemed so dismissive of authority figures in the old series, including his own father, Major Briggs, why did he become a deputy? Did he clean up his act and become a deputy as some sort of tribute to his father? Who knows? Andy consoles Lucy about her inability to get used to cell phones, which I thought was funny. Hawk tells Truman that the log lady's info is always good. Truman recaps that something relating to Agent Cooper is missing and only Hawk can find it, relating to his heritage, yet again. Another deputy, Chad, says he thought the log lady was 1096, which apparently indicates a mental subject, and banned from the station. Lucy explains that it's on account of a kind of gum. Bobby enters and sees Laura Palmer's prom photo on the table among the files, and has a very strong emotional reaction, breaking down and sobbing as Laura's theme plays in the background. He says Cooper was the last person to see his father, Major Garland Briggs, alive. Bobby's mother told Bobby that Cooper came to the Briggs home and then left town soon after that. No one has seen or heard from Cooper since Major Briggs died in a fire at his station the next day. Bobby doesn't know what Cooper and his father talked about. Another deputy tells the group that Wally Brando, Andy and Lucy's son, is outside and wants to pay his respects to Sheriff Truman. The repetition of the mystery in Twin Peaks is getting to the point of ridiculousness. It feels like Lynch is having fun with the old show's tendency, like a lot of shows at the time, I guess, to restate what's happening, what the recent mystery, or whatever the central mystery of the show is, in every episode. Um, is the gum that Lucy mentioned the same as that gum you like is going to come back into style, or are they just talking about that nasty pitch gum that the log lady always chewed in the old series? Did Cooper, or rather Mr. C, did he kill Major Briggs by setting fire at his station? In The Secret History of Twin Peaks, we learned that Briggs was in Twin Peaks to observe the supernatural goings-on in the woods around the town. Did Mr. C kill Briggs because he was the only one who could catch Mr. C, or the only one who could get Cooper out of the Black Lodge? We never saw Major Briggs' station in the old series. We never really even saw anything concerning the Air Force, except for Briggs himself and one other Air Force officer, or a couple of other Air Force officers. So it would have been interesting to see that. Outside, Wally Brando is a Marlon Brando-like biker, a la the Wild One. He wants to pay his respects to his godfather, Harry Truman, but has heard that Harry is ill. He wishes for Harry's speedy, painless recovery and goes through a long, rambling monologue about how his heart is always in Twin Peaks and all about his motorcycle travels all over the country. Truman thanks him, and the group behave awkwardly together, to be generous, I guess. Wally Brando talks about Lewis and Clark, which is more shades, more hints from the Secret History of Twin Peaks. Truman says it's great to see Wally, wishes him well, and leaves while kind of shaking his head privately. This whole scene just seems pointless. It unfolds painfully slow. It just seems like now, like Lynch and Frost are just kind of yanking our chain. So, on the other hand, perhaps Wally Brando has some sort of bearing on the actual plot, or is he just some side tangent with no real significance or purpose? I don't know. I guess time will tell on that one. Cooper is at Dougie's house. In the Red Room, Mike fills the air. He appears to Cooper, telling them that he was tricked. He holds up the gold ball from when Dougie disappeared. Either Cooper or Mr. C must die, he tells Cooper. Cooper must pee, and Janie E. gets him to the toilet, where he's shocked by his own urination. He's captivated by his reflection in the bathroom mirror when he comes out. Janie E. dresses Cooper in Dougie's ill-fitting clothes. Their son, apparently, Sonny Jim, which is a very strange nickname for a kid, appears and gives Cooper the thumbs up, which Cooper returns. Cooper doesn't know how to finish dressing, though, so Sonny Jim seats him at the kitchen table and helps him out with his food. Sonny Jim laughs at Cooper's strange behavior. Cooper seems to recognize coffee, but when he takes a drink, he spits it out. Cooper's behavior in the bathroom is reminiscent of his final appearance in the original series, after we find out that he is possessed by Bob. Is his reaction to the coffee a sort of meta commentary on Cooper's love of coffee in the old series? In Buckhorn, North Dakota, prints on the John Doe body with Ruth Davenport's head are blocked due to military authorization being required to see the person's identity. Who is the headless body? It's someone high enough in the government that the military restricted access to its file. Is it the real Philip Jeffries? Is it Major Briggs' body? Which would be kind of hard to do, seeing as how he apparently died 25 years ago in a fire. And that body didn't appear to be burnt at all, or damaged in any way except for being decapitated. So that's unlikely. Maybe it is indeed Philip Jeffries, the real Philip Jeffries. Cole, Albert, and Preston arrive in South Dakota. Cole and Albert talk about Mount Rushmore. When Cole mishears Albert talking about Preston being carsick, Albert yells, causing the driver to swerve. Cole wonders if Albert got up on the wrong side of the bed. It's a nice, fun scene, but I don't know if it has any real meaning beyond just being a funny little scene. At the prison, presumably Yankton prison, The warden and a police inspector explain that exposure to the substance that Mr. C puked up in the car sent the state trooper to the hospital. Mr. C carried cocaine, a machine gun, and a severed dog leg. They're shocked at the sight of Mr. C, who gives them a thumbs up and says it's good to see Cole again. They have kind of a long, stilted conversation. Mr. C says he was undercover with Philip Jeffries for years, and he wants Cole to debrief him. He was coming to give Cole this information, but was stopped by the accident. And he repeats this a couple of times. Mr. C says he left messages so that Philip knows it's safe while looking at Albert very tellingly. Albert looks kind of ill, sweaty. Mr. C wants to know when Cole can get him out. Cole says the prison can hold him for now, but Cole wants to bring him home. Mr. C says, "I've never really left home, Gordon," which is kind of a strange phrase. Cole tells the warden to give Mr. C his private phone call and that he expects to hear about it. Is this the same prison, Yankton, where Ray is supposedly incarcerated? Did Mr. C get sent there on purpose? His wreck didn't seem purposeful. How did he know he'd go to the same prison? It seems unlikely to me, but if so, are Chantal and Hutch going to be in place to help him escape from prison after he kills Ray or gets whatever information he needs from Ray? Why did Mr. C have a severed dog leg? What does that mean, if anything? Does Cole expect Mr. C to call him? Or does he just want to see who Mr. C does call with his phone call? One note about this is that when Cooper first greets Cole, he says, I assume he means to say, "It's very, very good to see you, Gordon," or Cole. But instead he says the first word backwards, Irev. Irev, very good to see you, Gordon. Which I guess tipped off to Cole and Albert that Mr. C was not, in fact, Cooper, was not who he seems, and maybe even tipped him off to the fact that he's a resident of the Black Lodge, if they know about the whole talking backwards thing. Outside Preston says Mr. C was headed west, away from where he claimed to be going. Cole says Preston is wearing a wire, which she says was at Cole's request, and Cole tells her to wait in a nearby restaurant. Alone, Cole tells Albert he knows something else is going on between Albert and Mr. C. Albert explains that years ago he told Jeffries who the FBI's man was in Colombia, the country. And this was something that Cooper said he needed urgently, information he said he needed urgently. And the man was killed a week later. They agree that something is wrong with Cooper and he didn't greet Cole properly, which harkens back to the word being reversed. Neither understands the situation. They agree that this is a blue rose. They need a certain person to look at Cooper. Cole wonders if Albert still knows where this unspecified woman lives. And Albert says he knows where she drinks. Did Cole ask Preston to wear a wire just to get her to leave so that he and Albert could talk alone? Was Albert's original contact with the real Philip Jeffries or the imposter that Mr. C was talking to earlier? Why did he want to know about their man in Colombia and then kill him, if he did indeed kill him? What should Mr. C said to greet Cole? Presumably they're talking about the backwards word, but was there some code word that they should have used between each other? A sort of a coded message and a response? If Albert is talking about Sarah Palmer, it shouldn't be too hard to find out where she lives or drinks, because they both seem to be the same place. Then again, it could also be Diane, who was the person that Cooper always addressed his tapes to. His assistant, I guess, at the FBI, whom we've never seen, but many people seem to believe that Laura Dern will be playing that role in this series, but who knows? I guess, again, time will tell. And that's all for my video about the 4th episode of Twin Peaks: The Return. Hope you enjoy it. Bye.